All right. So what we've got here is this is our basic color background. So I took my design, I penciled it in very lightly, and then I erased so that it wasn't too dark. Let me lock my focus here. There we go. And then I started to add my colors, and I started to darken a little bit here. You can see some of these shadows. But one way, and this is the thing about watercolors, you always have to think about layers, right? So if I have one layer of color, but I want to start to get a little darker, like I think I painted over this purple music a little bit more, I can do a couple of things. So one thing is I can use a little bit more of a dry brush, and I'm going to use, let's find some purple here, and I'm going to just darken this purple color with a little bit of color here, like so. All right, so I might add some shadows and highlights here a little bit. All right, like so. And I'm just trying to create some highlights and some shadows here a little bit. And again, the brush that I have is okay. I just might want a slightly smaller brush to get some of the details if I have one. Or, there we go. So that's one way, is here as I'm starting to, highlight, I'm starting to change things a little bit. Let's find a little bit more of this blue here. And I'm using a little darker brush. Now, I said a long time ago, as you add color, in my particular piece, I didn't really leave much white in here as a highlight. But if you want things to be highlighted, you're going to need to leave them white. Because you can try to paint that white paint on top here, but it's just not going to work very well. So I'm just going to try to add a little bit more value to this and layer some color on here. So they want her to stand out more. All right, so again, this is one way to add some value to your piece here. And if you're trying to do something realistic, you're obviously going to look for your light source. I am not. Mine is just more about like shapes and colors and a little bit more abstract. So I am not too worried about making this look absolutely realistic and three-dimensional. I'm just more interested in putting some darks and lights together so that it stands out a little bit more. All right, like so, and like so, like that. All right, and then I'm just using water here, and I'm blending out the edge of it so that it doesn't leave too dark of a link. And then like here, if this part of the hair is too dark right here, if I take my brush and I dip it in water, and then I wring it out with my fingers, like this, all right, then I can use this paintbrush almost like a mop, and I can pick up my color, just like so. And again, the trick is to sort of spread it around so it doesn't pool in one place and become just sort of like a dark blob. So, so that's one way. Is I'm just sort of going back in and I'm darkening and doing some different things, like so, trying to add some details. Put a little purple and the blue down here. Some of this blue down here. And again, I'm going to put some color down first. And then I'm going to use just some water. And I'm going to soften that edge a little bit. Just like so. Add just a little bit of color to sort of blend that edge. I'm almost doing the opposite here. I'm putting the shadows where the highlights are and the highlights where the shadows are on these. There you go. Another thing you can do is when this dries, is I have my handy dandy Blick colored pencils here. And I can use some of this to create some shadows and highlights. So let's see. Unfortunately, my color palette is pretty limited with these pencils here. You can see them. I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to try to tighten up these keyboard keys here a little bit. So like for my green, all right, I'm going to add a little bit of color on top of my keys here. All right, and I'm not trying to color like a crayon. I'm just trying to add a little bit of extra color with my pencil here like this. All right, and this will help me to sort of define some of these edges a little bit. Like so. I can use my darker green. Sort of create a shadow here. All right, and just start to give that key a little bit of dimension. So then I have this orangish color over here. And again, I'm just going to sort of lightly blend it in here. Like so. All right, so I'm adding a little bit of orange on there. I might use a darker red and create that same sort of a shadow effect. Here. And here. And I do have a black colored pencil that I might want to put a little bit more shadow in between these keys here a little bit. Now, the only thing I'll warn you about the black colored pencil, any of the colored pencils, is that they're a little bit waxy. So if you do commit to using a colored pencil like this, you might come across a problem where if you tried to watercolor on top of this pencil, it would not watercolor very well, and it's actually going to repel the watercolor. All right, but I like what's happening here. And I'm just going to let this sort of fade down here at the bottom like that. All right, so I'm adding a little bit of shadow in between these pieces here. So, and again, just sort of letting it fade as it gets to the top up there. Or the bottom in this case, I guess. There you go. So again, like seeing the top of those piano keys, I'm just starting to add a little bit of definition using colored pencil now. Okay. And here, and here. So, once the music dries here a little bit, I do have some purples and blues I can come in, and I can start to darken this up. But again, the pencil is going to be the last thing that I'm going to do on these letters, because once I put this pencil on, it's really not going to want me to watercolor on top of that. I'm just sort of letting that blend in there. Just like that. And again, you're seeing that I'm not really like, I'm not trying to color this thing in like a coloring book. I'm just trying to add some lights and shadows to this thing, so the letters are popping out a little bit more. To sort of highlight that music there a little bit. And then this is my, like I can even use my white colored pencil here. Maybe I will, see, this white colored pencil doesn't even work on top of this other color. Put a little highlight on here. I'm trying. right? But even this watercolor is almost too dark that that pencil's not showing so much. So that is that. So down here at the bottom, you know, with these guitar strings, I might try to tighten up these strings a little bit. All right, so I'm fixing that music word up a little bit. Where's my blue here? Let's do blue pencil here. All right, and if you remember we did our contour drawing, I'm also trying to vary the pressure of my pencil here a little bit so that it's not all the same sort of coloring book outline on this thing. So sometimes more pressure, sometimes less pressure. Like so. Like that. All right, so I'm defining that word a little bit more. And the gray again here. All right, some of these details, like the guitar parts here, I'm gonna outline again with those pencils. Varying my pressure. Like that. Find some outlines on this guy here. Like that. I don't think my strings quite line up here. All right, but again, just trying to use some of these tools to define the space a little bit more here. So there we go. Again, using the pencils to redefine those spaces a little bit. And I'm just using these pencils to redefine these shapes a little bit. There you go. And then the very last thing you can do is if you have your Sharpie marker, and I would say use this sparingly because again, once you put marker on here, it's really gonna, um, you know, draw your attention to it. But I'm just gonna use a little bit of this black marker, and I can just put a few details in here that are dark lines. Like so, and again, even with this dark line, I'm trying not to, what do you call it? I'm trying not to press too hard. I'm trying to vary the pressure of my lines so that it sort of sticks on it here. It just helps me to define these shapes a little bit more. Maybe I'll do the strings with a little bit of this here. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 6. There we go, like so. All right, so there you have it. Mine's not finished yet, but that's sort of the basics of just started adding a little bit more value and a little bit more contrast to your piece there.